good afternoon and welcome back to the Analyst of Vajiram and Ravi. Today is 22nd December and we shall be bringing to you detailed discussion of all the important articles that are presented before you. The first article is about a very unfortunate event which has happened in Jammu and Kashmir's Rajouri district, where a militant attack has led to killing of 4 Jawans. In this regard, we will do detailed analysis of the militancy scenario in Jammu and Kashmir. In the second article, amid the mass suspension of the opposition MPs, we see that Parliament has finally passed the Telecommunications Bill, which is considered to bring a revolution in the telecom sector. Then, we will do detailed analysis of the Namdapha flying squirrel, which has re-emerged after 42 years. This is a very important species in news. And we will also read about the protected area in news, that is the Namdapha National Park of Arunachal Pradesh. Then from the prelims point of view, we will quickly read about the Quasi-Judicial Regulatory Commission, which is the Competitive Commission of India. And finally, we will wind up the discussion by reading about malaria and its recently pre-qualified malaria vaccine, which is to be manufactured by the Serum Institute of India. So, let's get started. Now, before starting the discussion, a gentle reminder that in order to optimize your learning experience from this session, do not forget to download the handout PDF of this session available in the description box below. So, do check that out. Now, let's talk about the first topic in hand, that is the militancy scenario in Jammu and Kashmir. What is the context over here? Context is the resurgence of militant attacks in Jammu and Kashmir. This year especially has seen resurgence in multiple number of attacks, especially if you remember the news of September, where frequent attacks took place in about just 10 days in Riyasi district, Kokarnag district, Uri and Srinagar as well. So this year in particular has seen resurfacing or resurgence of the militancy attack. And yesterday only we saw that 4 army Jawans were killed and 3 were injured in a militant ambush between the militants and the army vehicle in the Rajouri, that is the Rajouri district of Jammu and Kashmir. Kindly also take care of the order of these districts because they can be asked in UPSC prelims examination. Okay. Now, first of all, let's get the basics correct. What is militancy? How is militancy different from war? And what is the difference between militancy, insurgency and terrorism, words which are frequently confused? Now, militancy is basically a short-term warfare or a small warfare which has got one key component, that is the use of violence. So here the characterizing feature of a militant attack is the use of violence. Now, if you want to relate militancy with other factors like insurgency, like terrorism, like armed rebellion, then we can remember it with the help of a Venn diagram. Consider militancy as a superset, as a main set, and then other events like insurgency, like terrorism, and multiple armed rebellions, they will form one or the other subsets of this main set, which is characterized by the use of violence. What are the further distinguishing factors between insurgency, militancy and terrorism? Let us figure out that. So, one most important characterizing distinguishing feature between 3 of them is what is the objective? What is the objective of the person who's following this ideology or who's taking up this practice? In the case of militancy, the objective is to have, or why are they performing militancy? Because they have certain socio-political and economic goals which they want to pursue by threatening the government, not necessarily the civilians, but by threatening the government. So in this case, the militants are using the violence in order to pursue their socio-economic and political goals. In the case of insurgency, the final goal is to overthrow the government. So here the goal is to overthrow. And when it comes to terrorism, the main objective is to have a psychological or to instill a psychological fear not only in the minds of government but also in the minds of civilians. So here it is to threaten or to instill fear and then pursue their goals. Goals again could be to overthrow the government or to pursue certain social, economic and political objectives. The second differentiating factor between these 3 types of violent attacks is who are they targeting? This is very important distinguishing factor. In the case of militancy, they target the combatants, people or the armed personnel, the security forces that are carrying the arms. Militants, in this particular case, you can see in the Jammu and Kashmir case only, this is known as a militant attack because here army jawans have been targeted, the combatants have been targeted. But in the case of insurgency, you can see that yes, while they do target the combatant only, but they can in some cases also target the administrative personnel and also in certain cases some civilians. Then in the case of terrorism, who are targeted? It is not the combatants but the non-combatants, civilians. So civilians are also targeted in the case of terrorism. So these are some among the distinguishing features. Now once we have understood these concepts very well, now let us understand what is militancy and what led to the emergence of militancy in the Valley of Kashmir. So Kashmir, since the time of independence, has been a long breeding ground of separatist ideologies. What led to the emergence of the separatist ideology is the confusion about its status, which has been there, which has been a historical dispute ever since the independence. So what happened when India got independent in 1947? While all the other princely states decided to choose their sides, whether they want to be with India or whether they want to be with Pakistan, it was some of the states, including that of Kashmir, which chose to remain independent princely state. Now Raja Hari Singh, since he did choose to not take any sides, his states in the upcoming months got attacked by Pakistani tribesmen who were supported by the Pakistani army. Therefore, he hurriedly rushed into Indian government and said that I want to sign the instrument of accession. And because he signed the instrument of accession, from then we can say that India started providing the military aid in the region of Jammu and Kashmir. And this event saw the introduction of both the Indian army and the Pakistani army in the region of Jammu and Kashmir, especially in the conflicted zones, that is the ceasefire zones where the ceasefire violations have been taking place because of the conflict that is created due to confusion, whether this is India occupied Kashmir or whether this is Pakistan claimed Kashmir. So because of this confusion, because of this army that is located over here right now, it also started a feeling of separatist ideologies among the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So from here starts the separatist ideology. But mind you, militancy has not started taking place yet. It is only the army which is deployed in the regions which are conflicted areas. But in the other areas, militancy is still not there. The decades which followed up the independence, they actually saw a relatively peaceful Jammu and Kashmir. But then eventually what happened, it was in the year of 1989 when the first ever military organization and hence the militant organization and hence the militant attack was done on Jammu and Kashmir. What happened? So as we know that in the following decade of independence, there were separatist tendencies that penetrated in the Valley of Kashmir. There were especially the Islamic groups who were looking forward to have more political representation because they felt disenfranchised. They felt that there was weaker democracy, there was lack of local autonomy, and therefore in order to seek that, what they started doing, they started forming group. All of them came together and they formed a group. This group is known as Muslim United Front, which is also informally known as Hurriyat. They specially formed this alliance to contest in the 1989 elections with a manifesto that they will not be following the Constitution of India, rather they will take up the Islamic laws that are preached by Quran. This was their manifesto. What was the result of this election? Result was that while they secured 31% of the total seats, of the total election votes, still they were only able to manage or to secure 4 seats in the Legislative Assembly. Now this enraged them. This angered them because they felt that the election was rigged by the government, and therefore aggravated from them and enraged from this fact, they started organizing Hurriyat into a militant group. They took up the arms and also performed the first ever militant attack. So from 1989, you will see militancy rising in Jammu and Kashmir. Then what happened? As you know, because now the militants have entered into the valley, the army or the security personnel will also come, and therefore this region will now become militarized. Because it is militarized, it will also lead to a lot many human right abuses. It was also alleged that many extrajudicial killings, tortures, rapes were done by the people who were militarizing this zone. So this human right abuses started aggravating or started frustrating the civilians living over there. Situation was already getting bad, and then came the ethnic angle. So some religious and ethnic conflicts also took place, especially in the decade of 1990s. The first one was the Kashmiri Pandit exodus, where they were forcibly removed from the valley, many of them killed and tortured. And also the Anantnag transfer case, land transfer case, where what happened? The 99-acre of land which was surrounding the Amarnath region, all of that was given to the Hindus. This again frustrated the Muslims that were living in the Anantnag region, and therefore they started violating, or they started the ethnic conflicts with the Hindu community over there. So already politically disturbed Kashmir is now also getting amalgamated with ethnic tensions. This led to huge rise in the amount of casualties, especially of the security personnel. If you can see from this map, since 2001, yes, you can see that there is a steep decline in the civilians and security forces fatalities, but the decade of 1990s will see a steep rise in the amount of casualties. That is happening because a lot of violence is going on, and now the civilians are also participating. Now, cross-border terrorism and external support is also one among the factors which aided the militancy. See, a militancy of this large scale cannot be sustained without external aid, without access of resources and arms, etc. And that was allegedly provided by the intelligence agency of Pakistan, that is ISI. And therefore, because of the external aid, because of the terrorism nexus with the bureaucrats, with the administration, with the government personnel, etc., they also help to aid and aggravate the militant condition in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. And finally, the economic and developmental factors also played a game. Why? Because, see, topographically, Jammu and Kashmir is little difficult because of the hilly terrain. It is not very easy to develop infrastructure over there. Because it lacked infrastructures, therefore it also lacked healthcare facilities, educational facilities, employment opportunities, etc. Therefore, the people of the Kashmir who were already going through a very depressing condition could not see a silver lining. Therefore, many of the people, especially the youths, could not find a place to direct their energy. So they chose the stream or the pathway of militancy, and therefore they became overground workers. And therefore, this steeply increased the amount of militant situation in the valley of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, what are the prominent groups or what are the prominent militant groups that are functional in Jammu and Kashmir? So first is Lashkar-e-Taiba, which has claimed the responsibility of the attacks which took place this year in the September month in these particular cities of Riyasi, Rajouri, Srinagar, Kokarnag, Uri, etc. And then Jaish-e-Mohammed, who has claimed the responsibility of the Pathankot attack of 2070, and also Harkat-ul-Mujahideen, which was responsible for a lot many airline hijacks that took place in the decade of 1990s. And now Kashmir is also seeing emergence of new type of militant group which are having a more secular undertone, because their aim is not to establish jihad. Their aim is basically to reinforce the rights and the glory of the Kashmir. Therefore, such secularized groups are the Resistance Force and the Kashmiri Tigers. You can use these examples in your mains answers. Now, what are some notable insurgencies? The Kashmiri Pandit exodus of 1990, the Uri attack, the Pulwama attack of 2070. Kindly note it down for your mains answer writing. You must also know the emergence of a new type of militancy, also known as hybrid militancy, where civilians are getting more involved. So here, the foreign state affiliation is getting lower decade by decade, but what we are seeing is the involvement of local or the civilians over here. You can see from this chart that the local recruitment in Kashmir militant groups have risen from 2014 to 2020 by more than 100%. Can you see this? So this is the new form of militancy, the new or the hybrid militancy, where people not only are using arms but also using stones, Here, we not only have the militant group, but we also have the overground workers who are nothing but the civilians only. So once we have understood what are the prominent groups and what was the cause of emergence of militancy in Jammu and Kashmir, what can we do about it? See, this is a very difficult scenario to deal with. And for a challenging scenario like this, we need a multi-pronged approach. Here, we would like to ensure that following things are done. First of all, the security and development of the Kashmiri people are ensured. Second, use of technology is there in order to effectively combat the militant group, in order to effectively create surveillance over them, and also in order to create positive narratives about the Kashmiri people, about their own status and about their country, India. Then what we also need to do, we need to de-radicalize our youth by providing them employment opportunities, skill development, etc. And we also need to ensure that we are integrating the Kashmiris with India so that they do not feel us versus them, and they feel integrated, they feel inclusive with India and treat them as a citizen of India only. Now, towards a peace framework, these are the following measures that we can take. First of all, whenever the attack sets in, the security forces have to take place in immediate effect. And this is done using the counter-insurgency operations, which should be very, very effective and efficient. Indian Army carries out the operation all out every time a militant attack happens in the valley of Jammu and Kashmir. Then dialogue and peace initiatives is also the need of the hour, where government has to put in place certain interlocutors or government agents who will talk with the stakeholders and the civilians in order to understand their grievances and also to address their aspirations. Then economic development is the need of the hour. Economic development will be done by providing infrastructure of healthcare, infrastructure of education, infrastructure of say other employment opportunities like setting up of industries, etc. All of this is required if we want to grow the economic growth, if we want to do economic development in this particular state. And this can be done by the Udan initiative of the government, which focuses on providing skill development training to the Kashmiri youth and also provides them opportunities of employment. Finally, security measures like deployment of additional troops, increasing surveillance by having smart borders, improved intelligence sharing mechanisms so that we can effectively prevent the attacks. So these are some of the preventive measures. Then again, what we need to do, we need to enhance the democracy, especially at the local level, so that they feel powerful. For that, community engagement and integration is the need of the hour. Now, Article 370, since it has been revoked, what it did, it integrated Kashmir with the rest of the India. It also did one more thing, that it started providing reservations and also establishment of district development council. All of this is essentially to boost the representation of the people who are not valued in Jammu and Kashmir. Then also Operation Sadbhavna is basically a kind of engagement between the Indian army, the government and the civilians in order to change their narrative about India. Then anti-radicalization effort also needs to take place. Here, Sahi Rasta campaign by Indian Army is carried out, where a 21-day training camp is carried out for the Kashmiri youth, for providing them skill development, personality development, and to persuade them to join and to use their energies for the service of Indian Army and not militancy. Then realization of soft border concept. We also need to address the problems that are created by the external states like Pakistan. What we can do with them, we can create soft borders, so which can provide easier movement of both freights, people and transport. And this will help us to de-radicalize these border zones. And finally, we need to counter the narratives using new technologies like artificial intelligence, where effective surveillance of the narrative can take place. We can block the narrative which is detrimental for the security of India, and also we can rebuild good narrative in front of the people that is aided, that is supported by the government of India, so that the narrative that they have of their own state and the narrative that they have about India overall also gets improved. So that is also the need of the hour. And overall, by following this peace framework, we will be able to achieve both the short-term and long-term goals towards having a peaceful Jammu and Kashmir. Now, talking about the second article, this is the newly promulgated law, the Telecommunication Bill, which has been passed by Rajya Sabha as well yesterday, amid many opposition MPs being suspended. Over 140 have been suspended yet, and still Parliament has managed to clear this Telecommunications Bill. Many have also suggested that this bill is one of the draconian laws. Many have said that this is going to bring a revolution in the telecommunications sector. First, we will understand and assess the multiple provisions of it, and then we will bring to a conclusion. Now, first of all, what is the need of the bill? See, the telecommunication industry of India is the second largest in the world only after China, with subscriber base of more than 1 billion people as of August 2023. That is a huge base. Secondly, it also heavily contributes to our FDI inflow. It is actually the fourth industry which acquires FDI to that scale and also contributes 6% of the total FDI that India receives. Not only that, the tele-density, the average tele-density of India is at 84.69%. You must also know that the urban tele-density is the total number of telecommunication services that are used by about 100 people in a particular set of population. So, the urban tele-density is about 140 and the rural tele-density is about 60%. And the average is about 84% for India. You also need to remember this. Now, with such a large user base also rises the security concerns which needs to be regulated. Therefore, this is a kind of regulatory framework which is also considered by some as a draconian law which can convert the regime into a totalitarian regime of regulating the telecommunication industry. Let's now understand the key provisions of the bill. Overall, the bill tries to strengthen the central government control on the telecommunication industry. Now let us have a micro analysis of the provisions. The first one is saying that whenever any telecommunication provider wants to provide any service, wants to establish a service, wants to expand the service, or wants to acquire any radio component, for all in all, he needs to have authorization licenses issued from the central government and not the state government. So central government will have the first say in bringing or in expanding or in creating any kind of telecommunication service in India from now on. What about the existing licenses that have been issued prior to this law? So the existing licenses will continue to be valid for their period of grant. Could be 6 months, could be 3 years, could be 13 years. And for those licenses where the period is not specified, it would be considered to be applicable for the next 5 years. This is the first provision. The second provision is the assignment of spectrum. Typically, the telecommunication spectrum or the frequency spectrum is allotted on the basis of auction. In this case, that provision is retained with a very fascinating exception. The exception is that in special purposes, for example, to have weather forecasting, disaster management, ensuring national security, etc., government can actually allot this spectrum on administrative basis. So here also in the assignment of spectrum, intervention of government is also enhanced. Next, allocating spectrum to satellite internet providers. So in order to enhance the satellite based internet services in India, which is nowhere to be found right now, government has also introduced this very new provision of supporting the satellite internet provider. For example, the OneWeb that is supported by Bharti, there is Geo, and from the US side we have got SpaceX Starlink developed by Elon Musk. So to support them and to promote them, government will be making certain spectrum allocations as well. Then the most controversial provision is the powers of interception of messages or a batch of messages, for example, a call between two people. That power of intercepting the call, blocking the message is also now given to the central government if it feels that it can infringe upon the national sovereignty and security. In these grounds only, it can also entirely suspend the telecommunication services from a particular provider also. Next is to give flexibility to the telecommunication service providers. Government has also given right of way. Right of way is basically to set up infrastructure, telecommunications infrastructure in any place, be it a public property or a private property anywhere. So this is a right to way. This is given. This is beneficial for the telecommunication service providers. Then what about the users? We will be given enhanced protection because now we will be asked about the prior consent to receive the messages. For example, the advertisement messages which eventually turns into spam. So now you can give a prior consent before receiving them. Also, you can report the malified or the malware messages that you are getting. But all of this can only be done once you are biometrically registered. So what is the prerequisite condition is for you to get biometrically registered just like an Aadhaar, and then only you will be able to exercise these protective provisions. Next is an amendment made to the TRI Act. Now you must remember that when this telecommunication bill is coming, it is kind of trying to pack up all these previous colonial acts. The Indian Telegraph Act, Wireless Telegraph Act, Telegraph Wires Act of 1950, all of these acts will now be wrapped up, thrown away and converted into the Telecommunication Bill, the Telecommunication Bill of 2013. It also aims to amend and not repeal, amend the TRI Act, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India Act of 1997. This amendment here only we are talking about this, that amendments are made on the basis of how appointments will be made in TRI. So here the clause of lateral entry is provided, where now individuals with more than 30 years of experience will be becoming eligible for becoming the chairperson of TRI, and professionals with experience of more than 25 years will be eligible for having or for becoming the members of TRI. So a kind of lateral entry has also been initiated. Next is Universal Service Obligation Fund. It has been renamed as the Digital Bharat Nidhi. What will be the aim of this fund is to aid and support the research and development in the field of telecommunication. And then a very unique feature is it has also made certain provisions regarding regulation of the OTT apps. OTT and the other apps like WhatsApp, Telegram, etc. Now, it has been said that they will not come under the provisions of Telecommunication Bill. Rather, they will be managed by the Ministry of Electronics and IT under the Potential Digital India Act. So now, OTT apps and the other telecommunication apps like WhatsApp have been kept outside the purview of Telecommunication Bill. Next, there are certain offences and penalties, trusted sources regime as well. This we are going to read in the next slide. So what about the offences? There are severe penalties now imposed. They are classified into civil penalties and criminal penalties. Now, suppose some telecom service personnel is providing the services without authorization from the central government or gaining unauthorized access to a particular data or even network of telecommunication, then the person will be liable for imprisonment of 3 years and fine up to 2 crore. If a person breaches the terms and condition of the authorization, then he is punishable for a penalty up to 5 crore rupees. If a person possesses any unauthorized radio equipment, then he will be penalized for a penalty of up to 10 lakh rupees. These are the penalty provisions. It also has a unique clause of trusted sources regime, which means that the telecommunication equipments that are now imported to India will only be imported from the trusted sources and not from those nations which can have a potentially adversarial effect on the security and sovereignty of the nation. For example, China. In fact, this provision was for the first time introduced in 2020 when clashes between India and China was going on. So this is regarding that only. So these are some of the key provisions of the Telecommunication Bill. I hope you have understood this. Now, whether it retains its status of being a regulatory bill or whether it gets converted into a draconian law, that time can only tell. So we will observe the ongoings of the bill. Now, our third topic is about Namdapha, flying squirrel, a very important species in news, a very potential question from UPSC prelims point of view. Another important potential question is the protected area of Namdapha National Park because of its unique features. We'll study what. But first, the context. The context is that this unique flying squirrel has been spotted after 42 years. Last it was spotted in 1882. In 1882 in Namdapha National Park, and therefore this squirrel was named after or is named after Namdapha National Park only. The name is Namdapha flying squirrel. Let's talk about the species. First of all, it is a very rare sighting, and because this sighting is not happening, the population is also not producing too much. Therefore, it is a critically endangered species under the IUCN Red List. Then, it is among the 25 most wanted lost species that are in the focus of Rewild's Search for Lost Species initiative. From this pointer, kindly be mindful of the fact that who publishes the Search for Lost Species initiative? It is not IUCN, it is not any United Nations organization, rather it is an NGO, Rewild's. Okay. Then what is the nature? What are the characteristics of the species? Now, as you know, that this species is found in the evergreen forest of Namdapha. Namdapha, because it has evergreen forest, therefore a lot many trees will be there. Now, species which are living in areas with evergreen forest or with lot many trees, lengthy trees, long trees, they get into a habit of climbing the trees. So all the species which can easily climb up the trees, they are arboreal species. So this squirrel is also arboreal, and also because it is more active in the night time as compared to day, it is a nocturnal species. Whereas its distribution all across the world, it is only found in the Namdapha Tiger Reserve of Arunachal Pradesh and nowhere else. Hence, it is endemic to Arunachal Pradesh, endemic to India. What are the threats? There's declining population because mostly of the degradation of the habitat, and also because they are consumed, they are killed, they are hunted for food consumption. Now let's talk about this national park, that is the Namdapha National Park. Interestingly, this is the largest protected area in the East Himalayan hotspot. As you know that India has majorly got three hotspots. One is the Western Ghat, the Himalaya one, and also the Indo-Burma. This particular park is very biodiversically rich because it has got an overlap. It has got an overlap of both the Eastern Himalaya hotspot and the Indo-Burma hotspot. It lies somewhere over here. If you see the exact location, it is found over here in the eastern borders of your Arunachal Pradesh, also lying in the tri-junction between China, India and Myanmar. It is also the fourth largest protected area, fourth largest national park of India. It is located between the Mishmi Hill and the Patkai Hill. Patkai Bums are found in Nagaland. Mishmi Hills are found as the easternmost ranges of Arunachal Pradesh. So as you can see from this map, let me erase it. So here is Mishmi Hill, here is Patkai Bum, and between it lies the Namdapha National Park. Then it is named as Namdapha after a river which flows through it, whose name is Namdapha, which is instead a tributary of Noa Dihing, which is also a tributary of Brahmaputra river. Which type of climate does it follow? It follows a subtropical climate, due to which kind of vegetation is developed? It is the evergreen forest. And because I have told you that it is evergreen forest, a lot many trees will be there. Therefore, it will be very, very biodiversically rich, especially with regards to arboreal species. Now, let's also read about the species that it entails. Let's talk about some of the small species and then the big species. There are certain species of cat like civet, small Indian, Asian palm, large Indian, masked, marble cat, fishing cat, Asian golden cat, all of them are very uniquely located in Namdapha. It is also home to tiger, leopard, Indian leopard, snow leopard, clouded leopard. In fact, it is the only national park in the entire world which has got all the 4 species of lion or the 4 species of tiger. It also has Hulog gibbon, which is the only ape species of India, is located in Namdapha National Park. The orchard species of plant from the side of flora also, it is very, very rich. It has host slipper orchid and blue vanda. Why are these species important? Because they are also included in the Schedule 6 of Wildlife Protection Act. So this is about the species and the protected area. Now, from prelims point of view, we will be discussing about the statutory body which takes care of the competitiveness, the environment of competition in the Indian economy, that is the Competition Commission of India. It is in news because recently Anshuman Patnaik has been selected as its new head of the investigation unit. Now, just imagine 2 scenarios. One scenario where you want to purchase a jeans which has MRP of 6,000 rupees. Now, when you found the price on Amazon, it only gave you for 3,000 rupees. You went on Myntra and the same jeans would cost again 6,000 rupees only, equal to the MRP. Then you went to Nykaa and you found that this jeans is costing up to somewhere 4,500. Which option would you opt for? You would opt for Amazon. What if Amazon starts doing for all the other products? Then it will start attracting all the consumer base, because it is creating a predatory pricing. Because of this predatory behavior, it will eat away all these small commerces like Myntra and Nykaa. This is one among the anti-competitive practice. Now imagine second scenario where, for example, a giant like Google because of its position, because it is very, very economically prominent as compared to all the other counterparts, it starts imposing its ad on all the other components, gadgets, companies, websites, everywhere. Everywhere you go, you find Google apps pre-installed. You find ads of Google everywhere. Now, this is where it is trying to misuse its dominant position in the market, killing away the other market players. This is also one among the anti-competitive practice. And a healthy economy can't bear with monopoly practices, predatory pricing, or abusing of your dominant position, such anti-competitive practices. Therefore, to take care of that, there is a statutory regulatory body in India which is named as the Competition Commission. This is a statutory body which basically enforces the Competition Act of 2002. It was established in 2009 after an amendment was done in the Competition Act. This Competition Act of 2002 actually replaced the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act of 1969, and this change was recommended by the Raghavan Committee. From prelims point of view, kindly remember what is Raghavan Committee related to and which act replaced the MRTP Act. Now, what is the composition? It has got 7 members, 1 chairperson and 6 members. All of them are appointed by the central government. And what is their eligibility criteria? First of all, they should be qualified to be a judge of the High Court. They should be people of high character, of high ability, integrity and standing. They should have special knowledge in these particular fields and have due amount of experience for up to or more than 15 years. What is the function of this body? It has got quasi-judicial function, which means it is an administrative body also having certain legal or judicial responsibilities. It can also be seen that so far it has adjudicated more than 1200 cases in India with a very good disposal rate of more than 89%. That is the function, that is the role of Competition Commission, with many more. Then the Amendment Act of 2007 did 2 things. First of all, it established the Competition Commission of India, and second, established an appellate mechanism for it. Appellate mechanism, also known as COMPAT or the Competition Appellate Tribunal, which further got replaced by NCLAT, that is National Company Law Appellate Tribunal, in the year 2017. So if a question comes that the appeal of Competition Commission goes to COMPAT, then that statement will stand wrong, because the correct answer is the appellate body is NCLAT. So I hope this body is clear to you. Now, coming to the last topic, this is a very interesting news because World Health Organization has added the R21, kindly remember the name, R21 or the Matrix M Malaria Vaccine, which is developed by the Oxford University and to be manufactured by the Serum Institute of India based in Pune. They will be responsible for developing this World Health Organization's selected pre-qualified vaccine of malaria. Mind you, this is not the first pre-qualified vaccine that is developed for malaria, rather this is the second one. So what about the first one? The first one was RTS or S/AS01 vaccine, which received the pre-qualification status in the last year, July 2022. And this is now the second vaccine which has received the pre-qualified status from WHO. So what is this pre-qualified status? See, whenever a vaccine has to be made available to the people, it has to go through multiple clinical trials. Upon assessing the efficacy of it, upon assessing whether it complies with the international standards of safety, then only WHO gives its cognizance to be used in the global immunization programs. So any vaccine that is pre-qualified by the WHO will only be given in the or will only be considered for the global immunization programs. The issue was with the first ever pre-qualified vaccine, that is the RTS, was that it had a very low efficacy. It had efficacy of 30 to 40%, but in the case of R21 vaccine, it is said that it will have more than 50% efficacy. So let us see which vaccine will be more effective. But why are we developing vaccines for malaria? Because of the growing cruelty of the malaria around the world. As we see that global warming is dominant, therefore with rising temperature also rises the breeding ground of the mosquitoes. Therefore, 500,000 children today are dying each year from malaria disease. Then 2022 has seen that about 250 million malaria cases have happened and more than 6 lakh deaths have happened across 85 countries in the world. So this menace is only growing louder and louder. What about malaria, the menace of malaria? First of all, this is not a fungal disease, not a bacterial, not a viral disease. This is a parasitic disease which is transferred using the ticks or the mosquitoes. So it is caused by Plasmodium parasite and which is transmitted to humans by mosquitoes of Anopheles family. Kindly remember that Aedes aegypti species is responsible for Zika virus, for chikungunya, and for the other mosquito related diseases. But it's only the malaria which gets transferred by Anopheles mosquito. So remember this factor. Now, there are multiple species of this parasite. The most widespread is Plasmodium vivax, and the one which is most deadly is Plasmodium falciparum. Now, what about the global status regarding to the recovery or prevention of malaria? So, WHO in its global technical strategy from 2016 to 30 has set certain targets that we have to reduce the cases of malaria and associated fatalities or deaths by at least 40% by 2020, 75% by 2025 and 90% by 2030 against the 2015 baseline, and that is why many of the steps like creating and giving cognizance to the vaccine is underway. India also has got an aim with a similar timeline of 2016 to 2030. We have got a similar timeline strategy, national strategy for reduction of malaria, and India aims to be malaria free by 2027, and it aims to completely eliminate the disease by the year 2030. So this was about malaria. This was about the malarial vaccine and also what are the steps taken at international level and national level. So thank you so much for attending the discussion. Hope it was useful to you. Thank you so much and have a nice day.